Hello and welcome. I am so beyond excited, and I'm probably always going to say that at the beginning of every video because I can't believe that anybody will watch this, and I'm also just so happy I'm finally doing this. Like, I have been wanting to booktube for so long, and I feel like I'm just living a dream I had, and I'm just having such a great time. So this is going to be my August wrap-up video discussing the books that I have read, my ratings, and non-spoiler reviews, as well as just saying a gigantic thank you for the views on my videos so far, the kind comments, and with the comments, the kind patience of the people that have commented. And I thought that I was tech savvy, but apparently I am not. And I was struggling with responding to comments and even realizing that I had any comments. So I'm slowly figuring it out. So I appreciate it, and just thank you for watching. So to get into the books that I've read for the month of August, which I know my August TBR dropped literally a week ago, maybe it's been 2 weeks, but I don't think so. I read these books super fast. I was procrastinating for book club, and I was just kind of in a little bit of a reading slump just for a couple of weeks, but that really made me read these books really fast. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first book I read, which I'm going to put a picture of here, is the library book. And I say read, I actually DNF'd it, and which is, did not finish. And I do have a question about that. Do you rate books that you do not finish? So I would love to know. So leave me a comment. I personally never have, but I was just curious about that because I don't know if I should rate it because it was so bad with the issues that I didn't find enjoyable. Obviously, that's not going to be the same for everyone else. But because it was so bad for me personally that I did not finish it, does that mean that I should rate it that I didn't finish it, or I should just let it go? Which I do usually just let it go and I move on. Yeah, so that's my random question. But anyways, okay, back to the book. I'm going to put it back up here. So the library book by, and I have notes here, so I'm going to look down from time to time, but that's by Susan Orlean. And this book, I would say you could read a description about it really quickly, and I'm not going to give any spoilers. It's just what the book is about. It is about the library in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Public Library, and when it caught fire, which I had no idea about, and it actually happened at the same time as the Chernobyl disaster. And so as you can imagine, as far as the news cycle goes, the library did not get much coverage about that book. It was for our Cup of Crime book club because we honestly all thought it was really going to be sort of a true crime book, but it was, alas, not a true crime book. But it was very split down the middle as far as who liked it, who didn't. It seemed like it would have been the perfect library book for a book club, but we were very split on it. So anyways, on to the next. The next book I read was for my young adults, for grown adults book club. And the book was 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All by Laura Ruby. And I will put a picture of that right here. And it, oh my goodness. I suggest this book to everyone. I will say that it is not a happy, feel-good book, as you can probably tell by the cover. It is definitely an introspective book. It follows these two sisters, mainly the oldest of the two sisters. It is during the Depression and the war, and their father has decided that he cannot raise them, which there's more information about that as the book goes, but he basically just gives them to an orphanage that is run by the Catholic Church, and lets his daughters be raised, and a son as well, his daughters and the son be raised by these nuns, and he just decides that he just doesn't want to deal with children. And then he I don't think this would be a spoiler. He then gets married and decides, to make some choices on which children he's going to take with him in this new marriage, because she has kids and he has kids. And so it is just this tragic story of one thing after another that is just so devastating, but also beautiful, because the resilience of these young girls, as well as the young man, is just unbelievable. Like, I can't even imagine going through what they're going through. And the really amazing part of this book, which I absolutely find so fascinating, is that it is told through this perspective of the narrator, and the narrator is also its own character and has its own storyline, which is absolutely beautiful. And I don't want to give anything away, but the narrator of the story becomes a story, and it's absolutely done so well and so gorgeously, that's a word, that every single person in book club loved it, even though it was absolutely tragic and very sad. But also, Albert heard a noise, so if you heard that growl, it was just beautiful. And I found out, like, looking into this book, that the author, this story was of a family member. I feel like it was her mother-in-law that it was. Can you hear Albert? Her mother-in-law. It was a true story. It was her story, and which makes it even more difficult to read this book. But again, just so beautiful, and I will absolutely recommend it to everybody. I don't know how I would describe it as far as a genre. It's definitely historical fiction, but there is some aspects of it that I think are a little genre bending, but it is YA, so that is one thing. But it was just beautiful, and we had such wonderful discussions. It's very feminist. It's very just the relationships with people that aren't your family by blood, but that they become your family because of what you go through with them. And I just absolutely love that. And it had such powerful messages, and the ending was something that left so much up to the reader, that you could sort of look back on the book and look forward into the future and decide kind of how you wanted this to end. And it was just absolutely beautiful. So I highly recommend this book. Again, it is 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All, and I don't want to give anything away, but it is definitely, the narrator of this book is unbelievably strange and different from any book that I have ever read. And I definitely think it's probably something in the future I would reread. Absolutely. So I'm going to turn the page, so I apologize for the noise and the shake. The next book that I read was for our book club Wine About It, which is currently over Zoom. So we do that over the internet and have a good time doing that. And this book we read, which I think I mentioned in my TBR, is that we're having an author visit. And I didn't think about the fact that the author visit is before. I thought it was going to be after I had read the book sooner. That didn't make any sense. I thought that the author visit was going to be before the end of the month, and I thought I'd be able to tell you about that in this wrap up. But I'm not, but I'm looking forward to it. So the book is Home Before Dark by Riley Seeger, which I found out is not the author's name. It is a pseudonym for a man named Todd Ritter. So we will be meeting Todd Ritter at our author visit, which is going to be a virtual author visit, so that's going to be great. And we kind of mentioned in our book club some questions that we want to ask the author, because our book club librarian is actually the one that is hosting this author visit. So we kind of had that in to where we got to give her some questions that we had. And I just thought that was so fun to get to discuss with her some of the questions that she was going to ask and the ones that we thought we would like to know about. So I think that's really cool. As far as this book goes, I would definitely give it 5 stars. It is so much fun. It is a psychological thriller. Let me tell you, it is page turning. I read it so quickly. It has a way, so it has horror in the genre description, so I was a little nervous about that because I've never read horror, but I would say that I enjoyed it. It was spooky. I wouldn't say horror, because I know that there are books out there that are very definitely horror filled, but this one I would just say is spooky. There were moments that there was one moment in the book that I literally slammed the book shut and called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what just happened, but I just need to talk to somebody, and I'm going to turn on some My Little Pony because I don't want to be in the house alone right now. It was just so spooky. And of course, it's about a girl who is in a house alone, and this freaky moment happens, and I was like, I can't do this. But yeah, so it follows a girl who has lived under the shadow of a book that her father wrote. And the amazing thing about this book is that the author wrote a book inside of a book. So you are reading the life of this girl, and then you're also reading this book that her father wrote. And so from chapter to chapter, you're switching back and forth, and the book takes you through this woman's life, as well as, I said girl before, but she is a woman. It takes you through her life alongside this book, and you start to see these parallels, and it really messes with your mind. But her father had written this book when she was younger. It became a bestseller, and it was meant to be a true story, and she didn't remember any of it. And so she's just lived as the girl that is in that book through her whole life. And so the book just takes place when she's older, and she's trying to figure out if this book in fact is true. What is going on? Why can't she remember what is happening? Oh my goodness, 5 stars. Probably the best book I have read in so long. I just cannot even. It was so good. But I highly recommend it. If you see the horror, I would say that it's definitely for somebody who probably likes thriller and horror and scary, it is probably very, very mild. But for somebody like me who doesn't do any at all, it was okay. But I definitely had to turn on some My Little Pony, which is oh my goodness, I just watched something scary. I read something scary, and I just need to have a moment of just pure rainbows and butterflies and unicorns to center me. But yes, it was so good, and I cannot wait to talk to the author and read more books by this author. I'm so looking forward to it. It was the first book that I've ever been in a book club that literally every single person loved it. It was so much fun. So definitely highly recommend. For sure. And so I totally talked and rambled on about the 13 doorways, wolves behind them all, and I didn't even say what I rated it. And for that book, I would say I gave it a 4 stars, and the only reason that I didn't give it 5, because obviously I talked about it, I thought it was great, and I will definitely recommend it to several people. The only reason that I didn't give it 5 stars was because I struggled with a little bit of moments that were not finished. And I'm fine with some storylines not getting wrapped up by the end of the book, but I felt like there were quite a few major just kind of things that weren't finished. So I did give it at 4 stars. But yes, Home Before Dark, 5 stars. That's 10 Fingers, 5 stars. But yes, anyway, so on to the next book. The next book I had mentioned, and I had told you that I had read it and was going to look into it a little bit more. And that was for the book club that has no name. It's just the name of the county library. And that is A Woman at the Window by A.J. Flynn. And I will put a picture of the book here, which has also been made into a Netflix movie, which I need to watch, but I have not yet. Unfortunately, book club was canceled due to the library not feeling well that evening, so we did not have it. And unfortunately, because book club is all done through the library and we haven't really connected outside of the library as, you know, the people who are attending the book club, we weren't able to have that even on our own. So we were sad, but for me, I was okay with that just because I had read the book before for a previous book club. Oops, sorry. A couple years ago or a year ago or sometime just in the past. But I did a little bit of research, and I actually talked to another person in book club who had told me all kinds of stuff because he was planning on going to the book club as well, and we were kind of talking about the book after another, so we go to 2 book clubs together. And he told me all kinds of crazy stuff about A.J. Flynn, which I know is a pseudonym, but told me just all this crazy stuff about this author. And oh, sorry, oh my gosh, I just keep shaking my phone. I apologize. Yeah, and I was like, oh my goodness, like that, oh my word. And so I looked it all up, and I looked at these news articles about this author, and so I won't go into it because I will just let you kind of look into it if it's something that even interests you. But I was just shocked at all of the controversy surrounding this author, and I could not even begin to comprehend that I had read this book when it came out. I think I read it pretty close to right when it came out, and I loved it. I mean, it was a psychological thriller that just captivated me from page 1, and I enjoyed it. I looked back and I gave it 4 stars. I think the only reason that I didn't give it 5, if I remember, is maybe I struggled a little bit with the portrayal of the mental illness. There were some moments that did seem a little forced as far as of a mental illness, but it being exaggerated over the top, which I know I'm not saying anything. I myself, like I said in my newbie tag, I struggle with mental health issues, and so I'm not saying that allows me to comment on anything, but as far as a fictional representation of mental health, I felt like there were some moments that were written poorly. As far as, anyways, I digress. I don't know exactly how I'm trying to say that, but maybe somebody else will kind of pick up what I'm saying. But it was just there were moments that just seemed so fictionalized that it was almost too fictionalized, if that makes sense. But yeah, so definitely if you're interested at all in that controversy surrounding A.J. Flynn or the man who writes under that pseudonym, definitely check that out. I don't think I'm going to be a channel that really talks about the gossip or tends to be the place that you're getting all your news and whatnot. And this happened a while back ago, so it's probably not new to a lot of people, but with me reading library books, I'm probably behind the times. So anyways, yeah, so definitely not sure how I feel about all of that, and I am just going to move forward. So the last book that I read was The Color Purple, and that is by Alice Walker. And I don't know for sure if it is a classic. I don't know if there's like a date that makes things a classic, or if there is a feeling that makes things a classic. I guess I should look into that, because definitely you're looking back and you're like, well, Charles Dickens is a classic, and you know, Jane Austen is a classic, and Fitzgerald is a classic. But then you're like, is a movie that was written in my lifetime, well, I guess it was, yeah, in the 80s. I was born in 89. I think the book came out maybe in 85. It was in my previous video. But like, basically, relatively recently, is it a classic because of date? But anyways, I digress. Let me know in the comments if you know, if you made it this far into my rambling video, what you think, because I am curious about that. What makes a classic a classic? And that's probably a question I'll ask again, because I'll forget that I asked it in this video. But I feel like I have no right to review classics or to read, when I read a classic or a book that is beloved by millions, if I should even tell you how I feel about it. Like, it makes me nervous, like that I'm gonna get a barrage of like, who are you and what gives you the right? But I'm just going to tell you my honest opinion, based on reading a book that I did not enjoy. And I really struggled through this book, and it is, I think, because it's epistolary, which I could not pronounce in the last video, and I practiced, but I don't know that I like that type of writing where each chapter is a letter and the story unfolds in that sort of letter format. And so I did struggle with that as the first issue, and then just the content, aside from the fact that it is a beloved classic, I struggled with the incest and the brutality of this book, which I know is very real and this was, you know, based off of Alice Walker's family, not any one particular story, but I did watch a video where she spoke about how she definitely took little tidbits from stories from family and put these into these characters. And so it definitely was real, and it came from real life. But the brutality and the ugliness of the characters and what they had, of some of the characters, and then just what other characters had to go through, and just the awful tragedies that this book, I read because I want to read something that I would enjoy, and I know that maybe that's not the only reason I should read, and I want to expand on that eventually. But for this, it was just so heavy. It was content warnings out your ears. And when you hear the author talk about it, which I watched some of her YouTube interviews, she just has such fondness for this book. It definitely is the book that launched her career. I mean, Steven Spielberg picked up this book basically immediately and was like, I'm making a movie out of this. I mean, Oprah, Whoopi Goldberg, Donald Glover. It was a huge cast of characters. It was Whoopi Goldberg's first acting. And as far as her acting, it was good, but for what she was acting in the story that it was about, it was just so heavy and just, oh my goodness. I don't know that this is a book that I could personally say I enjoyed at all. It was tragic. It was very tragic, and I don't know that I would ever recommend it to anybody, for that fact alone, that I don't think I could even prepare them for the atrocities in this book. And again, I know that it is based on a reality, that happen to people, maybe not necessarily one particular person, but oh my goodness. So I would just say, if you're thinking about reading The Color Purple, I would definitely give it a go. I'm always about reading the classics or the beloved books, depending on what this book falls into. But it was, oh goodness, it literally, I still to this day, sometimes I'll just think about the book and the movie, which is the book club it was for, book to movie, where we watch the book, or we watch the movie and read the book. And it was but it was a good, heavy discussion that really had us talking just about the time period and all the things that went on. But oh goodness. So again, I didn't rate it because I just don't feel like I could rate it, because I just don't. I mean, as a written book, did the story come out? Yes. Was it written in a style I don't like, so I didn't like it, but does that mean it's bad? And was this story written in a way that was beautiful, and was it real, and were the characters developed, and did it happen? I mean, it was just a book that I don't think I could rate or review, having talked about it for this long. But I would be interested to know like what you think about classics. If you ever feel like you can actually rate and review a classic or a beloved book that everybody is talking about, and if you feel like me, where you're like, oh my goodness, I have no right I have no right to talk about this at all, but I did talk about it. So anyways, that is the books that I read for the month of August, which has flown by, but also been a very long month. It's been very weird. So I will be ready to talk to you guys about my September plans and all that good stuff. And I know this has been a bit rambly, and I really want to get to the point where I talk less about books, but I think that's the whole point of book club, is that we love to talk about books, and I do love to watch people talk about books and ask questions and kind of just go on about books. So anyways, I am so happy that you checked this video out, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.